It was a quiet Tuesday morning when Ethan Cole, the CEO of one of the country's fastest-growing café chains, stepped into one of his cafes, unnoticed, unrecognized. Dressed casually, sunglasses hiding his eyes, he ordered a simple black coffee, hoping for a moment of normalcy. After all, even CEOs needed a break from spreadsheets and endless meetings. As he waited, Ethan noticed a small, crumpled note taped under the counter, barely visible to anyone in a rush. Curious, he picked it up. Something about the desperation in those words struck him. He looked around the cafe, seeing the same cheerful smiles he always ensured for his customers. But behind one of those smiles, Jenna, the young waitress with tired eyes and a forced laugh, was a story of struggle he had never imagined. Ethan sat down at a corner table, pretending to sip his coffee while watching Jenna move gracefully, yet wearily between tables. Ethan sat there swirling the coffee in his cup, pretending to check emails on his phone. But his mind was elsewhere, turning Jenna's note over and over. He knew he couldn't just leave it at words on a piece of paper. He felt a pang in his chest. How many employees might be silently struggling under his watch? He realized that his job wasn't just to run a successful company. It was to protect and care for the people who made it thrive. At that moment, an idea sparked. Not a corporate strategy, not a PR stunt, but a real human solution. One that could change lives quietly, without fanfare. Ethan sat there, swirling the coffee in his cup, pretending to check emails on his phone. But his mind was elsewhere, turning Jenna's note over and over. He knew he couldn't just leave it at words on a piece of paper. These weren't abstract employee struggles from HR reports. This was real life, real desperation, staring him in the face. He watched her for a few more minutes, noting the small things. The way her hands trembled slightly as she carried the trays, the forced cheer in her voice when joking with customers. Her energy was admirable, but he could see the exhaustion that no tip or paycheck could cover. Ethan excused himself quietly and returned later that evening, after closing. He asked to speak with Jenna alone, without revealing his identity. "I saw your note," he said softly, handing her an envelope. "I want to help, no strings attached." Jenna stared, blinking. I don't understand. Who?" "Just someone who cares," Ethan replied, his tone gentle. "I can't fix everything, but I can make sure you and your coworkers don't have to choose between rent and groceries anymore." She opened the envelope slowly, revealing a sum that could pay off rent, bills, and provide a buffer for emergencies. Tears welled in her eyes as she realized this wasn't a loan, not charity. Why would you do this?" she whispered. "Because someone once helped me when I needed it," Ethan said, a small smile breaking through. "And now it's my turn. Sometimes being a leader isn't about profits, it's about people." Jenna hugged the envelope to her chest, speechless. And Ethan, still in plain clothes, quietly left the cafe, leaving behind a seed of hope that would grow far beyond one night. The next morning, Jenna arrived at work still clutching the envelope. She felt a mix of disbelief and relief, but also a new sense of responsibility. She didn't want to feel indebted. She wanted to pay forward the kindness she had received. As the cafe opened, she discreetly told a few coworkers what had happened. The news spread quietly, not as gossip, but as inspiration. The staff began to support each other in ways they hadn't before, covering shifts, sharing resources, and offering encouragement. The atmosphere shifted from survival to solidarity. Meanwhile, Ethan returned to the cafe in his usual undercover way, curious to see the impact. He noticed Jenna smiling genuinely, laughing with her colleagues without the usual strain. The cafe felt lighter, warmer, as if the walls themselves had absorbed the relief of its people. Then came the twist. One of the regular customers, an elderly man who often sat near the counter, recognized Ethan despite the disguise. "Wait a minute. Aren't you the owner?" he asked, eyes wide. Ethan chuckled, revealing himself. "Yes, I just wanted to see the cafe from your perspective." Gasps filled the room. But instead of embarrassment, Jenna felt empowered. She realized the man who had quietly saved her life was not just a CEO, but a human being willing to step into their world, understand it, and act. Ethan addressed the small crowd of employees, his voice calm but sincere. I know work can be tough, and sometimes life hits harder than we expect. But if we look out for each other, even the smallest act of kindness can change everything. Jenna's eyes welled up and the staff applauded, not just for the money but for the message that had transformed their workplace into something more than a café. It was a community. Weeks passed and the café flourished, not just in business but in spirit. Jenna's gratitude had evolved into determination. She started mentoring new staff, sharing tips on budgeting and coping with life's pressures. The once tired waitress had transformed into a leader, inspired by a simple act of kindness that had changed her world. Ethan continued his undercover visits occasionally, watching from the corner as the café buzzed with genuine camaraderie. He noticed small but profound changes. Customers were greeted with warmth that went beyond the menu. Employees lifted each other up, and laughter now filled the spaces that had once felt tense and hurried. Then came a surprise that even Ethan hadn't anticipated. One morning, Jenna handed him a small handmade card. On the front it read, "Thank you for believing in us." Inside were signatures from every staff member with short note of hope, gratitude, and determination. Ethan felt a lump in his throat. This wasn't about recognition. It was about seeing lives changed, seeing humanity restored in small but meaningful ways. He realized that leadership wasn't measured in profits or statistics. It was measured in the lives you touched. As he left the café that day, he paused outside and looked back at the sign above the door. It wasn't just a name. It was a symbol of connection, compassion, and community. Jenna waved from the doorway, smiling freely for the first time in months. And in that moment, Ethan understood that a simple act of kindness could ripple far beyond what anyone could imagine. One note, one gesture, one decision to help. It could spark hope, inspire change, and remind the world of the power of humanity. Sometimes, being a leader meant stepping off the pedestal and standing quietly alongside those you wished to uplift. And sometimes, that was enough to change everything.